So, for those people listening in, hello, my name is Peter Mingils. This is a different stream than we're used to. We usually do this on Building Fortunes Radio, which is really on the Blog Talk Radio platform first, and they're having some technical challenges. So, we decided to kind of move with the cheese, if you will, and use some of the other stuff that we've used before in the past. And this is a service where we can actually stream, like video stream and audio stream, through several different platforms at the same time. And depending on how this goes, what we'll do is we'll take this movie it's going to be or video and chop out the audio portion of it and put it back on buildingfortunesradio.com for so those people that might be listening in, you might hear a little bit of a different tone. You might hear different. It might sound like I might sound a little bit different or stuff like that. But we are here on a Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time with a great friend of ours. His name is Scott Johnson. Scott and I met many years ago, probably 7, maybe 8 years ago, when I was doing Building Fortunes Radio shows, specifically talking about stuff that was going on in the MLM industry, and both pro and anti-MLM. And as a result of that conversation I had with a gentleman named Roger Van Vlissingen, where we did a radio show, Scott called me up and he said, hey, you know, what's missing from a lot of the criticism about MLM is the idea of the tools scam. And we're going to keep that introduction a little bit shorter here because you can pick that up on other shows. And we have about 30 minutes on this restream right now. So as we're learning how to use this platform. So you can listen to the previous stuff, but Scott and I started to do the radio shows where we talk about a lot of different things relative to home-based businesses, MLM, network marketing, the pro and the anti stuff. We talked about everything from, you know, the tool scams, which Scott will highlight just in a little bit, to some cult-like behaviors, to pro stuff related to MLM and anti stuff related to MLM. And today is December 30th of 2023. So it is our very last live. We're going to call this a radio show as well for 2023. So we'll talk a little bit about 2023 and 2024 in this abbreviated Building Fortunes radio show. So first thing I want to do is say, Scott Johnson, thanks for being here on your own radio show.
Hey, Peter, thanks for having me. And I'm sure this audio is going to be such high quality that who is just going to jump out of his pants and jump up and down. So
absolutely,
we're just making his day.
Yeah. So. We don't want to start a trend.
That's right. That's right. Unfortunately, neither one of us are into the talking head look, and so it will be audio only. So that's going to be something that will be disappointing, but we always try to disappoint him anyway.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me here. And we talked right before the show what I'd like to talk about this week. Something that we normally do, and I didn't even think about it until a couple of minutes ago, as we were chatting, is that we normally do a show at the end of each year, calendar year, with predictions for what we think might happen in 2024. So that's kind of going to be the theme of the show this week, to see what each of us thinks about different things going on in the MLM world and some of the things that we think might happen in 2024.
Sure. So I guess I'll kind of get started with some of the things that happened in 2023 that might form some of the stuff that might be happening in 2024. So the FTC took a couple of hurtings. They took a couple of ass kickings as a result of some of the things that they tried to do to some network marketing companies that could defend themselves. Now, the reason why I say that is because they took a look at Success by Health, and they put a whooping on Success by Health in the way that they traditionally do. Suppression of evidence, ex parte stuff. They basically just said, Jay Nolan is a scammer or a previous scammer, convinced some judges to do whatever they were doing, and basically had their way with a company called Success by Health. And in traditional FTC format, they put a whipping on Jay Nolan. They banned him from MLM. They fined him $7.3 million. They basically handicapped him and his people. They took over, not that they took over, but there was $1 million, I believe, paid for legal defense fees that kind of went away, meaning it was wasted because of all the different things that were going on. The people from Success by Health don't want to talk about it because they think they're going to be able to appeal this decision. And in a very traditional way, the FTC basically manhandled, even with horrible expert witnesses like Stacey Bosley. They were able to get their way in a traditional FTC overreach way with a company called Success by Health. That was reversed with an ass kicking that they got from what they did with Neora or Nerium by a gentleman whose name is Jeffrey Olson. Jeff Olson basically was sued by them right around the same time that this stuff was going on. It was taking years to go through the legal process because of the COVID delays and the other sorts of delays that usually happen in legal things. But basically, Neora slash Nerium decided that they were going to kick ass and fight back, and they did, and put Stacey Bosley in her place and put the FTC in their place, and the judge put all of them in their place. And that was a good win for MLM as far as the last thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in 2024 relative to the FTC. And my predictions will be the FTC is going to be relatively, these are my predictions. My predictions are going to be the FTC is going to be relatively quiet in regard to the MLM companies they go after, because they think they're going to have to re-strategize during 2024, at least the beginning part of 2024, on how they're going to go after MLM companies. So that's my beginning prediction for the FTC and 2024. I think it's going to be relatively quiet towards the beginning half of 2024 relative to any FTC regulations or rulings regarding MLM. So over to you, Scott, if you want to comment on what I mentioned.
Yeah, I guess you brought up Stacey Bosley, which reminded me of, I think my first prediction is she will no longer be an expert witness for the FTC. I certainly hope not, because she bungled it. I mean, she just totally dropped the ball. And that's not my opinion. That was in the judge's decision. It was a woman judge, and she just raked Stacey Bosley over the coals, as well as the FTC. You know, the FTC in the Neora case really did not bring any evidence to speak of to the table. They just said, yeah, this is just like all the other ones, and go ahead and rule for us. And the judge said, no, each case has to stand on its own merits. Duh. And I did notice, by the way, a while back when I was looking through the different court filings for Neora, shortly before the decision, I think it was, there was at least 2 FTC attorneys that removed themselves from the case. And I believe what I saw was they removed themselves because they had changed employers. So whether they saw the writing on the wall or they were asked to leave the FTC, I don't know. Or maybe they got a good offer, who knows? But I do think that the bottom line is Stacey, hopefully, Stacey Bosley will not be an expert witness. Now I'm going to, in the very near future, have a lot more time on my hands. And so I'm going to try to make your first prediction not come true.
Okay.
Not that I'm against you in any way.
Right.
It's just that I'm going to have a lot more time, during the day, during the working week. And I intend to approach the FTC as well as a lot of other people, a lot of other, whether it be state, local, federal government officials, and see if I can't get an audience with them to let them know that the MLM industry, in my judgment, is a mess. And if the FTC would focus in on 2 things that we talk about pretty much every show, which is tool scams, which applies to Amway and some other MLMs, and also lack of retail sales, which, as far as I know, applies to all MLMs, or at least most of them. Those are 2 fundamental things that we talk about in the show pretty much every week at the beginning for the new listeners. And I'm going to try to hammer that home and really engage with them, since I will have that time available. I just really haven't been able to do that, because of my job. So I will have that time available, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hopefully bringing the FTC to understand how, in my opinion, really easy it should be to clamp down on MLMs and make them be legitimate businesses. And those two items I just mentioned are so fundamental, and they get caught up in all these other areas that really don't matter. And when I say they don't matter, I'm not saying that they don't exist, that they don't have negative consequences, but you could fix everything else that's wrong with MLM. And if you don't address tool scams and retail sales, you will make very little progress. Whereas if you do fix those two things, you'll have massive progress. And so that's my prediction. That who knows what the outcome is going to be? They might not want to listen to me. Who knows? I'll try to put my charm forward the best I can. But anyway, yeah, I do think that Stacy Bosley hopefully has been recognized as not being an expert. In fact, I think even in the case with Success by Health, my understanding, at least, I haven't seen the documents, but my understanding, and I think you talked to some of the people who were involved in that lawsuit, she really did not come off very well. And we don't have a lot of information from that lawsuit, but when that time comes around where we do have more information, if she was consistent with what she did with Neora, she probably just blew it. And I know she was on, I think it was this 2023's MLMconference.com production. If you go to MLMconference.com, it's actually an anti-MLM conference, but she was one of the guest speakers. And I thought she did just a terrible job as far as explaining herself and explaining why she should be considered an expert, because she pretty much came out and said, yeah, I think, all these studies I do and all these, sort of ad hoc questions and interviews of people, they're not real meaningful because they're not real life. They're pretend. And anytime you do that, you're introducing factors which are not present in an actual situation. And to my knowledge, she's never been in an MLM, nor have hardly any of the other so-called experts, whether it's Robert Fitzpatrick or Bill Keefe or, all these people that put themselves out there as being experts. And it's not so much that they were never in an MLM, it's that they never were in MLM, and they don't want to listen to people like myself who were. So they're not getting the inside scoop, so to speak. They're sort of taking that academic stance and perspective, and they're just getting stuff wrong. You can just listen to them for 2 minutes, and you realize they have no idea what they're talking about. They're just talking. So anyway, I guess we'll get started there, Peter. And sorry to throw water on your prediction, but that's
Well, let's do a little bit of clarifying. You're in reference to shaking up the FTC to go after the MLMs. It's not that you're interested in closing down the MLM industry. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we've said before, maybe somewhat infamously, when MLM is done right, it's fine. When MLM is done wrong, it's wrong. So we're pro MLM when it's done right, and anti MLM when it's done wrong. So do you want to clarify, if you will, your position on MLM and what your what your stance is there? Like,
yeah,
in reference to some anti MLM people, they want MLM basically extinguished as a business model. So
that's
I'll
right.
let you clarify.
Yeah, I will clarify, and we've talked about this many times on previous shows, but I'm with you. If MLM is done right, and I've always considered it really a brilliant business model, I think it has just a tremendous attraction. It's supposed to be very low cost, very low overhead, and as long as those two things I mentioned, retail sales are present and tool scams are not present, then you have a legitimate MLM. Otherwise, with the lack of retail sales, that's the exact definition of an illegal pyramid. And when you have tool scams, and I'll visit tool scams here in just a minute, just so people understand. But when you have tool scams, that's RICO fraud. I'm not a lawyer. It's at least business fraud, because what happens with the tool scams, And I'll talk about Amway because I was in Amway for a dozen years before I found out about the tool scam, and an additional 4 years thinking I could put together a legitimate Amway business, and the corporation was completely non-cooperative. And so after 4 years, I got frustrated. And I also, during that 4 year period, slowly came around to the understanding that Amway corporate is not a victim of the tool scam. They're actually in on it. Not that they're making money directly, but they are making money indirectly in that when someone buys the tools, they tend to stay in longer, probably, and therefore they probably buy more products, and therefore Amway makes more money. So Amway doesn't have to profit directly from the tool scam to indirectly profit from the additional products being purchased. So when we talk about tool scam in the Amway context, particularly, back in our day, I got started in January of 1993. We had books, tapes, and functions. So the upline sold books for full price. Um, they sold cassette tapes for, I think it was $5 and then $6. And then when CDs came along, it was $7 per CD. And then the functions were, small, medium, and large meetings, anything from $5 to watch somebody show the plan to a $25 Saturday seminar to a major function, which was typically $125 to $150 per person, which was the whole weekend, starting Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday through midday or so. So those are the major functions. And all of those things, the upline cleans up on. They make massive amounts of money. It's well documented. If you go to my Facebook page, you can find my 3 websites, my YouTube channel, my email, the link to this radio show when it's on Blog Talk Radio, and you can see all this for yourself. I have several examples of people who, after they get kicked out, say, "Yeah, I made, 5 times more or 10 times more from tools versus Amway," and so I think that that's very deceptive and unfair, which are the two. Are you still there? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we're here.
Hello,
I can
Peter.
hear you fine.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. I
Peter's
had
here.
a
Yep,
thing
I
pop
can hear
up
you
on my
just fine.
screen saying, okay, it said I lost connection. Um, so anyway, let me give you my Facebook page. It's www.facebook.com/Scott Tex Johnson. And that's ScottTexJohnson, all one word. And you'll find all those things. Now, in the modern day, and even we had voicemail back in the 90s, but certainly nowadays there's voicemail. There's no longer physical cassette tapes or CDs, I think, in most cases. Most of it's now electronic. So, you've got phone apps, you've got these MP3 and MP4 downloads. You also have website access, which we had also back in the 90s and early 2000s. But all of these are sources of profit for the upline. And what makes it a scam, by the way, is not making the money. I don't have any problem with people making money. It's the fact that they're making it by lying. They're lying by omission. They put on airs as if they made all of their money from Amway, but they actually make most of it from the tools. That's what makes it a tool scam. If they said they made most of their money from the tools, it would no longer be a tool scam. It would just be another source of profit. And then people can make an informed decision whether or not they want to pay into that until they get to the platinum level, which is the normal level that you start getting paid for tools for your downline. So yeah, I'm totally enamored actually with the MLM model. I was since I first saw it. I still am. I just can't find any companies that are doing it right. Not all of them have tool scams, but all of them that I've been able to really look into do not have retail sales. And most of what drives that is overpriced products. It's just really hard to sell overpriced products to customers. It's not real hard to purchase overpriced products when you're being told by your upline, oh yeah, if you work hard enough and long enough, you'll get filthy rich. And look at us, right? They hold themselves up as examples. Look what we did. If I can do it, you can do it type thing. So it's that whole mantra of just false information, basically. And that's where I want the FTC to sort of, pull up their britches and act like adults and understand that they can focus in on those two things and really make some major headway. Now, we also made some comments, I did last year, 2022, I think it was May of 2022, because the FTC asked for input on a couple areas. One was uh, earnings claims, and the other one was product claims. And my comments addressed all of the questions that were being asked. But then I also made the comment that product claims and earnings claims are really just symptoms of overpriced products and lack of retail sales, because you have to convince even a distributor, set aside customers for a minute. You have to convince a distributor to buy these overpriced products. And so you almost are forced to make income claims to make it look like it's worth it to buy overpriced products. And you have to make some kind of exaggerated product claim, because you can't just say, yeah, this is overpriced soap and it's very average. So you have to make a product claim, and depending on how far out you go with the exaggeration, it becomes more and more of a problem, obviously. So yeah, I'm totally on board with legitimate MLMs, which kind of puts us, I think, in the same vein. And what it really does is it alienates us with most of the both pro and anti MLMers. The two camps that are at the extremes, just like we have political extremes today. That we're the people that understand what's going on, and we don't think that either side does. Both the pro MLMers. Now, I think some of the pro MLMers do understand what's going on. They just don't want to admit it. The anti MLMers are just crazy. They can't sit down and think for a minute. They have to be anti MLM, and part of it is, I think, they depend on each other to have the same perspective, and none of them want to sort of go outside that anti MLM box and say, "Hey, let me think about this a little bit." They just don't want to do that, and so that's the problem. So anyway, yeah, we're on board as far as MLM done right versus MLM done wrong, which I think we can define as lack of retail sales and tool scams, period. That's
Right.
all. That's all that needs to be addressed by the FTC, at least at this point, right? Now, let's say they fix those two issues. Certainly, there are other issues with MLM, and they could start looking at those other issues, but after they fix these two big ones. If you don't fix these two big ones, you go after everything else, you're just not going to accomplish much. And keep in mind that even non-MLM businesses are not perfect, because they're made up of people, and people are imperfect. So we're not so naive that we're going for perfection here. We just want to fix the big problems, and then we can talk about the other problems after the two big problems are fixed, because then something else will be the big problem, but it won't be nearly as large as these two. I can guarantee you that. There's just no way. So anyway, that's my little spiel. I'll hand it back to you, Peter.
Excellent. Okay, good. So we have a few minutes left. I'll just kind of touch on some of the other predictions that I might have. We saw over previous years, the early 2020s, big things with cryptocurrency, mining. In 2023, you also had a lot of stuff with NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and those types of digital products. And I think those are both basically dead in MLM. Like anybody's trying to get started with an NFT would be like, they're trying to get started with a cassette tape. So as far as those things, I think we're done with that. I think the newest trends are going to be the application of GPT, the large language models that are out there, whether it's OpenAI, ChatGPT, stuff like that. I think whether that comes in the form of recruiting, whether that comes in the form of an application, whether it comes in the form of a business building tool, this is going to be the year of the ChatGPT, let's call it, or the artificial intelligence specifically. And it's also going to be, it's going to be short-lived, because they're going to just basically destroy, again, one more thing, but it'll take most of 2024 to be able to do that. So that's my big prediction of where I think most of the scams are going to come from. Most of the trading scams are already done. Most of, like I said, the cryptocurrency scams are already done. They're old. The new shiny object is artificial intelligence and things revolving around artificial intelligence. Things that are going to go out of flavor are going to be the physical products. A lot of the, nutritional supplement type of thing, unless you're doing something to separate yourself, the weight loss stuff, whether it's patches or vitamins or pills or potions or lotions, that's a hard thing to keep going, although some people will continue to do it. And the scammers will always scam. And I think we'll see a lot of that still because they got to do something. They have no ability to do anything else. But I think the general trend is going to be along the line of having an artificial intelligence thing to it. And then I predict, I suppose, that there will be an anti-MLM conference, if we're going to throw that out there for Bill Keep, because it doesn't cost them anything to do a digital conference. So there'll probably be an MLM conference 2024. Usually they do that around March. So I say that's probably going to be there. I don't know who's going to be there. I'm sure Marco's going to weasel his way in there. Bill Keep will do it as well. We'll have the traditional social media pronoun people like we did last year, but I don't think they have any momentum at all. They're flat. So they are dead flat. Even the big MLM social media people, they're all dying on the vine, kind of branching out, doing other things because they see that either they'll be sued or the audience is just kind of old. So like everything else, things get old. So those are some of my predictions, Scott. I'll let you wrap up your other predictions for 2024.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Now, that doesn't mean that these crypto and other things that we've been seeing recently are going to go away completely, because there's always people out there that'll fall for them, right?
Yep.
But I do agree that the AI stuff, and we're already starting to see that on behindmlm.com, which is our go-to website for new stories. They do a great job of digging up the stories and a great job of following them. And I just saw a story, I think it wasn't on behindmlm.com, but it was just in the news that that Donald Trump's former attorney, and I'm trying to remember his name. Is it Michael?
Oh, Michael Cohen.
Michael
Michael Cohen. Yeah.
So I saw this story just a day or two ago, and it's related to the artificial intelligence. So he had apparently gone on one of these artificial intelligence websites and did something, asked a legal question or something like that, because he's no longer able to access the real legal platforms anymore because he was disbarred. And so he went to these artificial intelligence and he set up this question or scenario or something. And the results that this AI platform, I think it was Google's, gave him, and I didn't know this before, but Google actually makes up stories. And that's exactly what happened with him. Was he gave this story to his lawyer, and his lawyer, submitted it, and then they found out that it was not only AI produced, but there was cases in there that had never existed. It just makes them up. And I know that my experience rather limited, but when I've asked a question, it really is garbage. They have a long ways to go, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be a big thing in the MLM world, and a lot of people will get hooked into it. And I guess the last comment is our friend David Wood is back. So, so I think we're going to talk more about David Wood.
We'll have plenty of content. We have plenty of content.
That's another prediction.
I think there's some New Year's music here on this stream. So I think we're gonna see if we could wrap this up. We do have some kind of music here.
All right.
I don't know if that sounds like New Year's. I think we should probably do Christmas. Let me push the Christmas music and see if that can play anyway. But we're running out of time. We have a 30-minute window here. And I want to say thanks for everybody listening in on Building Fortunes Radio. Go check out Scott's website, and we'll be back on buildingfortunesradio.com/Scott-Johnson. So buildingfortunesradio.com/Scott-Johnson for the previous radio shows. And we'll work on this streaming platform as we go as well. So Scott, thanks for being here. We had an old Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we will speak to you guys next week. So Scott, thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Take care.